Hey guys, what's going on? Back here for a review of a game that, to say the least, has been highly, and I mean highly anticipated, and I do apologize that this took a bit longer to come out than expected. I wanted to dive into this game as much as I possibly could before recording this review, and of course, I didn't want to record it without the person that was with me for my part 1 review, but if you guys could not tell by the title screen, Mr. Garrison and I are here to review the highly anticipated, but also the highly divisive game it also seems to be known as The Last of Us Part 2. And I just mentioned, Mr. Garrison is here with us. Mr. Garrison, how are you doing today, buddy?
Shitty.
Alright, so in terms of the plot of The Last of Us Part 2, now, first of all, I just want to say right now, if you have not played Part 1, do not play Part 2. Please play the first part because there is just so much story and context within that game. Also, by the way, I feel like I should mention, Gary and I actually played the game. We didn't judge off of story leaks. We actually stayed away from the story leaks. We played all 20 to 30 hours of the game, and now we're judging. Now, with that being said, the story of The Last of Us Part 2 takes place about 5 years after the original game. Instead of playing as Joel, you play as Ellie instead. And I don't want to give away too much because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that still have not been in this game. The gist of the story is that Ellie and Joel have been living in this town of Jackson for about 5 years after the events of the original game. And after a very traumatic event has happened to Ellie, she sets off on a quest of revenge. And that is all I'm going to say about that. Now, in terms of the story of this game, I gotta tell you guys, I was not prepared for what the story had in store for us. This was a game that, now, I don't want to take everything that you want to say, Gary, but in terms of story, this was a very bleak story, a very depressing story, and a very intense story that goes over the themes of revenge, hate, pain, the cycle of violence, and how hate especially can lead you to essentially not to a path of destruction, but it can also lead you to kind of lose everything.
We all know The Last of Us is an achievement in video game history. The concept of a sequel coming out was something interesting and got my own mind curious, wondering what it's going to lead to. Sure enough, this game went places that you wouldn't have even thought of. The game at the start leaves you in wonder and question why with the events that transpire, leaving you thinking, you know what, I'm gonna fucking hate this in the end.
Correct.
But here's no. You gotta play the fucking game to actually continue on to see what happens and how and why things happen. Because the thing is, when you're gonna hate on a specific character or you're just gonna hate on a thing that happened, you're just fucking assuming and making a speculation. You gotta play the game and actually progress into the story and understand that there is more to it than just what you see.
Absolutely, I agree completely.
The further you play it, not only does it reveal details to answer the questions of wondering why, but it also gives you different speculations of the particular characters that commit the actions and crimes that leaves you in anger.
I agree.
But as you progress further, you not only understand the backgrounds, but where they're coming from and why it is that they do. It's because of the theme of revenge that plays into this game. It's the feeling of redemption and exactly trying to get things done that you had planned for yourself that you want after shit that transpired beforehand. I want to talk about something that everybody's been bitching about constantly.
Go ahead.
And what the fuck people are complaining about the whole fact that there is a lesbian couple in this video game.
That's one particular thing.
I don't understand why people are complaining, because it's a lesbian couple that was set in stone prior beforehand, even it was remotely even put into the game itself, just the concept of the law was out there. From the experience playing this, of seeing how their interaction is and what they're doing, yes, there's kissing, but the thing is, the way they interacted, other than the romance, they were basically a regular couple.
I agree, yeah. It felt real. To which I want to say right now, to all the voice actors out there, whether you're Ashley Johnson, Troy Baker, Laura Bailey, Shannon Woodard, who by the way voiced Dina, all of you, absolutely terrific in your roles. Let's get into the gameplay really quick. This was
gameplay. Gameplay, which is one thing I've been telling people to fucking do about it, but no, they rather stick to watching and judging the story without actually experiencing. Folks, if you want to just watch something for a story, go watch a movie.
I agree, guys. This is a video game. You play a video game. You don't watch a video game. Unless if you're Telltale Games, that's a different story, though. Getting into the gameplay, so it's pretty much the same gameplay as from part 1, except Gary, you and I were talking about this in our review of part 1. The thing that we were hoping for the most when it came to the gameplay was that they keep it, but they would double, triple down upon everything, and they did exactly that. Every single aspect of the original game that we loved, which is not only the stealth, to which has been, if you ask me, the stealth gameplay is even more intense this time around, especially with the tall grass parts, which I absolutely love.
Do they adapt from the original source of tall? Because this is one thing that Naughty Dog likes to do. When it comes to gameplay alone, they take things that not only work in the first one, if they're making like a sequel or a third installment or whatever, like a whole series, and if they're taking a gameplay that not only do the people who play Naughty Dog's games, the particular gameplay that they take, if it works, then they keep it in and add little things little by little to make things a little bit more interesting. That is Naughty Dog's formula that I managed to personally pick up. They did it with Uncharted, they did it with Crash, and they did it with, I forgot, there was another one. Jak and Daxter.
Yes, Jak and Daxter. I almost forgot about that too, actually.
They took the gameplay and they kept in of what works, and they added little things to make the game much more interesting. Here's a couple things about the game that is different in terms of what the first one did.
Right.
The first thing that really stood out to me in The Last of Us Part 2 is that the low count of ammo that you get.
Yes.
The game did. Unlike the first one, where you get a bunch of different ammo from the exploration, where you do like a bundle of different shootouts. Here's the thing of what they did. They limited the amount of ammo that you get. So ammo is very scarce within the game for this one reason, and I actually really appreciate it, because the thing is, they wanted to focus more on the stealth element with this game, especially with each within both stories, that they want you to focus within the stealth sequence. The game itself is a much more open landscape within the different areas that you are going to, not only with its exploring, but the whole entire elements, because when all the bad guys come out, it gives you the tall grass, it gives you the ropes to climb, it gives you little things that you can work with, and you can set different booby traps that you can make the gameplay much more experimental and creative in terms of the stealth element. The thing with the whole entire shootouts of why it's not so as heavy as it did and why they limited it down is, what I'm thinking is that I felt they took a Resident Evil approach.
I agree completely. And by the way, speaking of that, Gary, there was a specific part involving with Ellie and Dina. It happens with an underground subway. How this part looked, I feel like that Naughty Dog was taking their step of, okay, if we made Resident Evil, this is how we probably do it, and I thought they absolutely nailed that. Now, speaking of more open areas, one thing that we can easily agree on that is that the graphics, the lighting detail, and the art direction of this game, this is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Now, here's the thing. Naughty Dog, ever since they have been making games, they have been known for making cinematic quality games. This is without a doubt the most cinematic quality game I have ever seen. Like, it feels like you're literally playing a movie, like the most interactive movie possible.
It is something very beautiful to look at. Especially for being on the PS4 and such, the graphics and the whole entire landscape with just the whole nature aspect and the characters alone is absolutely phenomenal.
I agree, and this game has easily some of the best lighting. I mean, there are some areas in this game where the lighting alone just blew me away, and I used the photo mode so many times in this game. I'll actually show you guys a couple of the shots I took right now. But otherwise, I mean, I have seen some amazing looking games on the PS4 like God of War, Death Stranding, Horizon Zero Dawn, and more than a few besides those games. But this game, honest to God, probably has the best looking graphics on the PS4. Now, Ghost of Tsushima will be out very soon. But for now, I think that Last of Us Part 2 in terms of the cinematic quality feel to it. But seriously, Naughty Dog knocked it out of the damn park with what they were able to do with the PS4. And by the way, if you guys happen to have a PS4 Pro, you're going to be blown away multiple times, especially with the part that involved a farm. That's all I'm going to say. One thing I have to comment on as well is not just the musical score, which by the way, the music, I have to say, for the moment this game starts, the tone alone from that opening guitar beat, it just feels darker and grittier. And not just that, but the sound design just has this extra oomph to it that it's honest to God, the sound design kind of scared me at times with how raw it was.
It is a much more terrifying atmosphere because it's a lot more in-depth detail and a lot more things put into sound design within the monsters and enemies that you go up against. But the music alone is one thing that I focused on more than anything in terms of the whole entire audio elements of listening and shit. Despite the same thing of what the game is doing with the depression, there was a small twist of what I was able to pick up. The small twist that I got with the whole music is that it felt much more of a calmer sense of relaxation.
I can see that too. Now, going into the flaws. Now, personally, Gary, I don't know about you. I beat this game last weekend, and I've been trying to think of a single thing that I didn't either like or nitpick, and honest to God, I can't think of a single thing. I know we've been talking for a couple days after we beat the game, and I know you mentioned that there's a particular thing that you didn't like, so I want you to explain your thoughts with the game really quick.
Here's the thing about the game that I didn't like. I thought the ending was unexplainable. There was two things to the ending. One part was explained and understood, but the second part is something that felt absolutely inconclusive. Yes, the reason is there for why the thing happened, but the thing is that I felt that the way it should have been explained should have had much more detail and a certain element to make it much more explainable as to why it happened. Sure, it was there, but I felt like that this particular reason didn't even bother getting explained at all.
You could have just used a bit more to the whole thing. That's pretty much it, right?
Basically, the conclusion, I wish the second element that I had problem with was a lot more there to make me understand and have much more in-depth detail as to why it happened and why the reasons that were there could have been explained in just maybe a little thing. I didn't say I hated the ending because I didn't. Cause I had half a part that I really liked, but the other part I didn't like. So the ending itself was something that I'm just not too happily praised about, and that's the only thing I'm on the divisive side, is that I don't agree with the ending.
Getting to our final scores, Gary, give us your final score for The Last of Us Part 2.
As an overall observation, other than my flaws I have with the ending, as an overall presentation, the game itself, I thought Naughty Dog did themselves a very intriguing job with this game. Now, am I saying it's a masterpiece? No, I don't think it's a masterpiece at all. But I do find the game to be very intriguing. It has a lot of in-depth things that you go into wondering why it happened, makes you hate it at first. But then as you play further itself, it really goes into detail, giving you two different perspectives of learning who they are, not making you wonder exactly that this was going to go in the route that it was, and it did, for all these reasons of why it happened within how the characters' feelings and why they did it for this particular reason. The whole visual presentation is absolutely remarkable. The gameplay alone, same exact concept with a few little things, that nice little Resident Evil approach, adding on the whole entire opening landscape. The score itself was just something very calming, peaceful. My solid rating for it is an 8 out of 10.
I pretty much loved everything about this game. From the story, where it went, I loved the ending, even though the ending has been proven to be divisive, do not get me wrong. The gameplay has been improved tenfold. They didn't do a lot, but they doubled and tripled down in the littlest ways to make the gameplay just that much better. This has some of the easily the best looking graphics, or one of the best looking games I've ever seen. The music is absolutely amazing. The sound design is incredible. I honestly can't think of anything I didn't like about this game. Now, do I think it's a masterpiece? I need more time to digest on that. However, do I think it's a phenomenal game to one of the greatest games of all time? Absolutely yes. So my final rating, I didn't think I'd be giving this rating, but I cannot think of anything I didn't like, so I'm giving this game a 10 out of 10. There hasn't been a game like this that has made me think about it. I haven't stopped praising about it. I haven't stopped playing a game like this, or made me feel like this, ever since, I would say, God of War or the original Red Dead Redemption. Thank you all so much for listening and also watching Gary and I's review of The Last of Us Part 2. I hope you guys enjoyed the game, if you actually did play the game and not just watch the 95 minutes of footage. But anyways, please comment down, let us know below, what did you guys think of The Last of Us Part 2? Did you guys think that this was a better game, or did you prefer the first game? Let us know below. You guys can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. I'm also on Snapchat and Stardust, so if you guys want to follow me on all those social media platforms, all the links and the usernames are in the description below. But for Mr. Garrison, where can the good people find you guys at?
You want to know where they can find me? In a bar. Find me on my two YouTube channels. NG2T Network is my prime main channel. And you can find me on my secondary channel, Mr. Garrison 96.
Alright guys, I hope y'all enjoyed Mr. Garrison and I's review of The Last of Us Part 2. If so, please hit that like button, also subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell for whenever the latest video from me or Gary and I goes live. If you guys want to see any of our previous 2 reviews, please click on the right there or on the left or right sides of the screen. And of course, until our next review, we'll see you guys next time.
You okay? Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking scars.
How far are we from the fob? It's a hike.
We're too exposed. Let's get inside.